Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Best Bet. I am your host, Frank Scatoni, and I am streaming live from the private dining room at Ranch 45, right across the track on Via de la Valle. After this live stream, I'll be heading to the main dining room. So if you are coming to Del Mar a bit early, stop by, say hi, have a bite to eat, and we can talk horses. I know a few people are going to be over there, so it should be a lot of fun before the races. I know I say this every week, but just in case there are any first-time listeners out there, this is not a traditional selection show. We are not going to talk about every race. We are just going to look at specific races and wagering strategies that offer the best opportunities to make a decent score. If you're watching live, feel free to leave us a comment or ask us any questions. The show will also be archived on Del Mar's Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube platforms. All right, let's get down to business. Today's guest is one of the co-hosts of the popular Bettin' and Boozin' podcast. It's like a man after my own heart. I love that. He's also a public handicapper for the HHH Racing podcast. But most importantly, he's a young, smart, up-and-coming horse player who comes with the stamp of approval from two players I hold in very high regard, Matt Miller and, of course, Howard Kravitz. So I'm really excited to talk to our guest today. Please welcome Noah Meagher. Noah, what's good, man?
Not too much. How you doing, Frank? It's awesome to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And not a lot of 20-year-old kids get to do something like that, so this is awesome.
Well, like I said, I mean, you come very highly recommended. Those guys are two of the best horse players I know, and the work you've been doing for Howard's HHH Racing Podcast Network has been phenomenal. And we'll talk a little bit about your power picks, but I know you've been crushing it at Del Mar. Opposite of me, I've been getting my teeth kicked in, but hopefully you can make me a little bit of money today. Before we get into all that, let's recap yesterday. We had an amazing day at Del Mar. Of course, Pacific Classic, Grade 1, biggest race of the meet, won by a horse named Mixto. But we had a bunch of other races, graded stakes races on the undercard, obviously several of which have Breeders' Cup implications. Just tell us about your day yesterday and if you have any thoughts about certain horses going forward, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you have to start the day with talking about Kyle Frey, who had a hell of a day, won the handicap with Gold Phoenix, and then takes home the Pacific Classic with Mixto. Two horses I actually wasn't a huge fan of. On our Thursday Bettin' and Boozin' show, Ryan Anderson we had as a guest, and who's also been a young handicapper and coming into the game as well. Actually, an intern for you guys at Del Mar. He liked Gold Phoenix quite a bit, so a little shout out to him. And then in Mixto, I haven't yet found somebody that liked Mixto in that race, but I did end the day well. Got out pretty nicely with Conclude. I did like Conclude quite a bit. I knew he was going to get a much better ride than he got two back, and Hector got him straight to the lead and took him all the way, which is it's a little more common that you see them taking them wire to wire on the turf this time of the meet.
Yeah, and what a day for Phil D'Amato, right? He had three winners. He had Gold Phoenix, who has now won the Del Mar Handicap 3 times. He had Motorious, who has now won the Green Flash 2 years in a row. And then, of course, Conclude, who was undefeated here at Del Mar as a 3-year-old last year, now comes back and wins, the biggest turf race at a mile here over the summer. What an incredible day. How about going forward? As much as I love our California horses, and I was impressed by a lot of the performances yesterday, I'm not sure how we're going to stack up heading into the Breeders' Cup. Obviously, we'll see how the fields come together. But as good as some of those performances were, I'm not in a hurry to really go bet back any of those horses from yesterday. But, we'll see. Do you have any opinions on that?
I'm with you. I'm in agreement. As impressive as Gold Phoenix was, he got a pretty good trip. I don't know if he matches up to those East Coasters, let alone the Euros are going to come over and dominate. And then looking at the Classic, I think Full Serrano's maybe a good contender for the Breeders' Cup dirt mile. And then going into the race, I wasn't wasn't sure if Dr. Vakeman could get the 10 furlongs. So I think the cutback could definitely help him as well.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I wasn't really thinking of that, but yeah, those are two excellent dirt mile candidates, and I think they'd have big shots. So that's funny. We have to pivot in this game, right? They both ran in the Classic at 10 furlongs, and now there's possibly another spot for them cutting back in the dirt mile. All right. Before we get into all the handicapping and wagering talk, I have to know, what is your horse racing origin story? How did you get hooked on the game? What about racing appeals to someone of your young generation?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in the Southern California area, Orange County. The city itself is Yorba Linda.
Okay.
Grew up going to Los Al to watch simulcasts. My dad and I would probably go maybe once or twice every couple months. He would go and meet up with his buddies, and I would just kind of tag along. And when I was really young, I just tell him to make $2 win bets on a couple horses that I liked, or a couple horses that he liked, or whatever somebody there kind of told me to do. But I was always really good at math. So that's kind of how I got into reading the racing form and just got interested in the statistical side of things. I probably started reading the form a little bit younger than I should have. I know if you asked my mom that question, she would agree. But then slowly got into more complicated bets. I'm only 20 years old, so I've only been doing it for so long. But I'm still learning stuff, especially from Matt Miller and Howard, they've been super generous in giving me advice. So I'm still open to learning a lot about handicapping, a lot about betting. That's for sure.
No, I'm 53 years old. Every day I go to the track, I learn something else. You never stop learning in this game. The expression evolve or die is very prevalent. There were angles and, there were handicapping angles and things that I loved to do 5 years ago that offered great value. And those angles don't exist anymore. So you have to move on to that. At some point, the market is always going to catch up to you. And once the market catches up to you, you have to be prepared to move on to the next thing, because if you don't, you're going to get crushed, especially in this day and age with the computer guys. The markets are so efficient that you really have to be able to pick and choose your spots and then bet aggressively in those situations. So yeah, every day is a learning experience, and you have to adapt, you have to pivot. And if you walk into the track and think you're the smartest person there, you're probably going to lose a lot of money. It's good to have that kind of confidence. Don't get me wrong, but you need to be open to learning things, right? So I'm with you. Let's talk about your involvement in the industry. You said you're 20 years old, you're young, and yet you've established a little bit of a name for yourself, and you're on some, pretty high profile shows, and you're doing really good work. From a public handicapper's perspective. I know Matt Miller gives you shouts, Howard gives you shouts. I see what you're doing. People on Twitter. Tell us your involvement, what you're doing, and maybe what your plans are for the future.
So I just started my junior year at the University of Kentucky here in Lexington. That's where I am currently located right now. We just started school a week ago. We've actually got tomorrow off for the holiday, which is nice.
Labor Day. So you can gamble.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So I can write power picks. But I'm 2 years through my college experience. I was fortunate enough this past summer to intern for John Stewart in Resolute Racing.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I did that for I did that for about 3 to 3.5 months, and I'm currently in the process of trying to get hired back and just help them out whenever they need it, because John's a very busy man, and he's got a lot going on in his life, so he needs as much help as he can, and I'm very fortunate to be able to help him and just kind of learn the niches about owning racehorses and kind of running a farm. So
I think he is absolutely great for the game. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him, but following some of the stuff that he's been doing, from people posting on social media and whatnot, and the level of investment and skin that he has in the game, you have to root for a guy like that to succeed and do really well. So were you doing more like racing management, or more like breeding stuff, or just a combination of everything?
A little bit of everything. I did some kind of breeding projects on the side for John. He would kind of have me do a little bit of research here and there. And then also I just kind of got to help out all of the people that kind of work underneath him. So I got to help out with our our CFO, our office manager, our social media and marketing. So I got a little a dip of my toes in the water of kind of all of those aspects of, owning a farm, running it, and they've actually been pretty successful, which has been nice too.
Yeah, that's incredible. I didn't realize you had done that. So that's a pretty good foot in the door if you want to be on that side of the business for sure. Tell us a little bit about your power picks and your public handicapping, and what you're doing and where we can find your work.
Yeah, so I've been, for the duration of the Del Mar Summer Meet, I've been writing power picks for our podcast, hhhracingpodcast.com. You can find that's the website that you can find them at. I've been doing it on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. I've been skipping Thursday, and it's been a little tough as of late, just because I've been getting back into school, but trying to manage both that and picking winners for people.
According to Chris Walsh, you've been on fire. So that's a ringing endorsement right there.
Yeah, I was on a little show with them on Friday night with the Equine Edge guys and Chris Walsh and a couple other people. I think I gave out it was a 6'2" exacta. It was with Seismic Beauty and the Sheriffs.
I think it was on Friday, right?
Yeah, Friday. I gave out that straight exacta, and then yesterday, obviously struggled a little bit, but then was able to end the day nicely with Conclude. So I got money to play with today, that's for sure.
Yeah, great price on Conclude yesterday. And I always tell this story. It's funny. One day I'm walking into Santa Anita and I'm in the big parking lot, and some guy starts running and shouting my name. Frank. He's running up to me as I'm about to walk into the place. He goes, "Hey, so what, you got all the winners today?" I go, "All of them? I only need one. That's it. And you got to make that one count." So you got a good price on Conclude in the nightcap, and you could turn your whole day around, right? So you got money to play with today. Bill Murray, the great author William Murray, we call him Bill. He used to call himself the king of the nightcap. He'd be losing all day long, and then all of a sudden you get to the nightcap, he'd pop, he'd hit big, and he goes into the next day with a good attitude. So you're never out of it in this game. That's the best thing about it. Let's move on to your handicapping approach. You do your power picks, you do your write-ups, which I think are phenomenal. I've read a bunch of them, very detailed. You make really good cases for horses. Obviously, you do a lot of the work. You do a lot of the digging. What tools do you use? What is your approach when you're analyzing a race? That kind of thing from a general handicapping perspective.
Yeah, so when I started getting into the game, I mostly just kind of read the handheld like DRF book that they print out, kind of like the newspaper style. Yeah. You pick it up at the liquor store on your way out to the track. So that's how I kind of learned.
Ryan Anderson does the same thing. I can't believe all you young guys are using the newspaper form this old man stopped using 15 years ago.
Hold it
I love it though. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I started doing that, and then within the last probably year and a half, ever since I started getting into the podcast, and I started to use some online tools a little bit more. I've started to just use DRF online. But I love the tools that they offer, especially the breeding, because that was something that I always struggled with. But now you can just click on mother and father, and you get all that information, as well as training stats, which I love. And then I've definitely become a little more of a visual handicapper, just because when you look at it on a piece of paper, you're not really getting the full story. So I love to watch replays and come up with conclusions based off of what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the few things where I feel like players like us do actually have an advantage over the computer models. The algorithms right now can't really factor in, what we see visually. I would say maybe 5 years from now, they'll teach AI how to actually watch races and come up with trip codes. But for now, we have to do the work, and we have to do the digging, and we have to formulate our own opinions. And you have to do the work to succeed in this game. So I know you do it. Just I could tell from your write-up. So I'm really looking forward to going over the races and your picks today. Just a couple of more things before we move on. You got your horses. You got your spots where you want to maybe take a few swings. Do you have a general wagering approach? Do you gravitate more towards multis? I saw on your Twitter feed you had a pick six on Thanksgiving Day in 2023 for 12 grand. So I know occasionally you do play the pick six and multis, but is that something you gravitate toward, or you just kind of take the day as it comes?
I'm probably a pick five first player. I'll only play the pick six. I think we played the pick six on Thanksgiving Day just because it was a carryover that day. So
Okay, got it.
It'll mostly just be the carryover days that I play the pick six. So normally I pick five, and then when I scan the card, I try to find some middling prices that I like to key in exactas. So I'll play them on top, and then in second, and I'll alter the increment with the bet. So like if I pick a horse and say race 4 that I like, maybe between 4 and 8 to 1, I'll use that horse on top, and then I'll use 2 other horses I like underneath, and then just flip flop them. So I'll use other 2 horses on top. I'll play it for half the increment, whether it's
Right.
10 or 5 or 2 or whatever, and then I'll play it that way, hoping that the horse I like runs in first or second.
That's such valuable advice. There's so many people who come up with a couple of good price horses and they use those horses to build their multis, but then miss another leg and take nothing out of the race where they have the strongest opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So advice to everyone out there, if you do have a mid to long priced horse, you have to take money out of that race if that horse wins or finishes second or third if you're an exacta or trifecta player. But it is absolutely crucial that you cash if your opinion hits the board. And you can't go, oh man, I had this 15-1 singled on all my, pick 5, pick 4s, everything. And then you whiff in a leg before, and you have nothing to show for it.
Yeah,
that's the toughest part of the game, right? I mean, handicapping's fun and all, and you have to be a good handicapper, obviously. But more importantly, you have to be a good bettor because, I say this all the time. You and I could give out our best pick to 20 people in the same room, and they're all going to bet it differently. Then a bunch of them are not going to hit. A bunch of them are going to lose. So you have to be really targeted, really efficient, and really creative with your wagers.
Yeah. And I think that's a good model. Just for example, with me yesterday, I played just some small pick 3s to try to get into Conclude. Unfortunately, it didn't work out because Mixto beat me, but I'm trying to press up my opinion with the horse that I like the most. And I knew Conclude was going to be 4 or 5 to 1, but if I get the first 2 races right, I can turn that into, 40 or 50 to 1.
Right. Yeah. It's, I give such good advice out on the show, but it'd be nice if I listened to myself once in a while. I did like Conclude, and Almendaris was actually my top pick yesterday. And for some reason, I was playing in the tournament, and we had to hit something and connect, and it didn't work out. But the point is, I like the 5 to 1, and I think Almendaris went up at 9 to 1. They ran 1-2, and I've got nothing to show for it. So easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
All right, last topic, just real quick. You're a young guy. This summer, I've really tried to showcase a lot of new faces. Like we talked about Ryan Anderson, Jackson Muniz, who does some work for the In the Money Players podcast. I had Tyler Hoffman on the show. He's young. Shane O'Neill. He's I think maybe a junior or senior at UCLA. He helps manage. His uncle is Doug O'Neill. So he's involved in the game through his father, Dennis, who's a bloodstock agent. You guys are the future of the sport, right? Next generation of horse players. In your opinion, what can we do as an industry to appeal to more young folks like yourself? How do we grow the gambling part of the game? How do we get you guys to, help grow our sport?
Yeah, so I think maybe the best way to do it is to take something from what Keeneland does. Keeneland's about 15 minutes from Lexington, and when they run during the fall and the spring, they have a lot of college kids that go. It's a little more of a social event for them, just because they like to go out there, dress nice, watch the horses run, and I'm really one of the few that's actually betting seriously. But how do we get those? How do we convert them?
Yeah, what they do is they will set up a lot of incentives. So they'll host some scholarships. They have a college scholarship day, and then they'll set up some tents and some activities for some of the younger kids to do, which I think is something that the California tracks can do, because Santa Anita's got the infield, so they can set up tents. And I know that they do the kind of the carnival events for the smaller children, but I think they can do something like that to try to get the teens and the younger adults a little more involved. In Del Mar, they got that fairground area where they used to do the concerts, which I think they could do something with that and turn that into something to get people more into the game.
Yeah, I know in the fall meet, maybe even actually this closing weekend coming up, I think they are Del Mar is doing some kind of college day. So I agree with you. That's you got to get them to the track. That's step number one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you can do marketing wise to get them to the track, that's one. And then two, you got to get them to become interested in the gambling side of the game. So we got a lot of work to do on that. But let's talk about gambling now. Let's dig right into the races.
Let's do it.
I know there's like 4 races you want to talk about. You have some strategies. Let's start off with race 2, a $40,000 optional claiming event, non-winners of 1, contested at 11 furlongs on the lawn. The rails I believe, are still at 0 feet today. Morning line favorite number 7, 7 Wonders at 5-2. A 5-year-old who is still searching for his second career victory. He's run some very solid races, but he's been stuck at this level for a very long time. I understand why he's listed as the morning line favorite, and he probably will go off at favorite, mainly because he's facing a bunch of horses who've been running at starter level or at the conditional claiming level. So this is probably one of the weaker fields he's ever faced. So if this horse does not win today, I don't think he'll ever clear this hurdle. It looks like you're against him. Why don't you walk us through this race, Noah, and tell us how you're going to play it?
Yeah, so this is the kind of race where it seems like there's a couple horses like 7 Wonders where we kind of see what they can do. They're kind of stuck at the level that they're at, and they're not, getting a whole lot better. So I went in the direction of the 1 Jeweled Shalila, who I think is a little bit of still an improver. He's only 4. He's raced 9 times and he's won 2 of them. I thought his win last time here at Del Mar in the $50,000 allowance race was a little more impressive than it looks on paper. He got out to the lead. He set pretty decent fractions. And then the horses that were kind of near him towards the front of the pack, 2nd and 3rd place finishers, I think ended up finishing like 5th or 6th and then 9th. So it didn't really fall apart. But I thought the flow and the dynamic of the race is that horses were making up ground. He showed that little bit of burst that you kind of need on the lead where you can get away if you're getting a little bit tired. And then he kind of showed that at the top of the stretch. And then the 2nd place finisher in the show was Joy, was making a late run. And those two were quite a ways. I mean, they were over 4 lengths from the rest of the field. And I know he's never gone 11 furlongs, but there's a couple of horses that haven't done it either. And then some of the horses that have, I just can't trust them. So I think Jules Rispoli's gonna shoot him right out of the gate. And like you said, the rails are down, so the inside is going to be the place to be.
Yeah, and Rispoli has had a phenomenal meet. Probably, or arguably, the best turf rider in the colony, as far as I'm concerned. This summer, and a horse with tactical speed drawn inside with a good jock could be very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
So, talk to us about how you're going to play this race.
Yeah, so what I'd most likely do is I'll probably just play the 1 Jewel Shalila to win in place, and then I'll probably use a couple horses to key in exactas. The 2 Pioneer Prince is one that's just been super consistent. Went over to the Doug O'Neill barn and won, and he'll probably be close to the lead too. I'll probably use the 7 Wonders a little bit defensively. And then maybe explain this audit who's first time in the Peter Miller barn. But I'll probably do that exacta bet that I mentioned a little bit earlier. I'll try to get Jules Shalila either in 1st or 2nd and see if I can get one of those to run with him.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked that race to talk about because I did not have a strong opinion. I wanted to beat 7 Wonders, obviously, because the horse just never seems to win. But now I have a selection. So thank you. Let's move on to race 6, the $25,000 claimer. Contested at 8.5 furlongs on the lawn. Morning line favorite is one of 2 Richard Baltus horses, number 7 Hurricane Cloud at 3-1. I actually really liked this horse last time, even though I thought there was a chance he would need a race coming off a long layoff. He was also a waiver claim. He was protected that day. So I think that was just a leg stretcher. I do think he needed the race. I think he will move forward today. And I do think he's a strong contender, but the interesting to note here is that Rispoli, who we just talked about, ends up on the other Baltus, who you seem to like better. What do you make of all that? The jockey changes and how this race is shapes up and how you're going to play it.
I think you have to factor that in certainly. Baltus has 2 in here, and Rispoli decides to go to this horse here in Law Abiding. There's not a ton of speed in the race, and Law Abiding, even though he was a little bit off of it last time, I think he's shown ability in the Matthew Troy barn to get to the lead and run well. Yeah. I know that was on synthetic, but he's plenty proven on turf. He's got 3 wins over the turf. I know he hasn't won at Del Mar, but he's still run fine. Even in that last race, he had a little bit of traffic, and I thought he was wide in the stretch, and the rails were out that day, so that didn't necessarily help him either. Like I said, there's not a ton of speed, so I think if Rispoli can get out of the gate and tuck in, just because it is a little tough to win from out there, going 2 turns on the turf, I think if he's able to save ground, and as long as he's near the front, they shouldn't be going too fast up front, and I think if he's got him in the right spot, I think he's very live.
Yeah, and I think that 16 starter is tougher than that non-winners of a year that Hurricane Cloud probably coming out of. I think it's a Baltus Exacta. That's how I'll play the race. But why don't you walk us through how you're going to tackle it? It looks like you want to do a double here, King Law Abiding in the race that we're talking about, race 6.
Yeah, so I'll start with the race 5, which is a $40,000 claimer for maidens. This is a pretty wide open race, and there's a lot of horses that don't seem to want to win. 2 of the horses that I have are actually over 16, but I liked Russell's Hustle last time. It's his 2nd time on the turf, and he's stretching out. I think he prefers going 2 turns. The 4 I have on there, Pelagio for Paul Aguirre, who's done very well this year, and I thought he kind of did the dirty work last time in that race that a couple of familiar foes are coming out of. And then the 8, my top pick, Saltwater Cowboy, for Rispoli again, and Doug O'Neill, going turf to dirt. O'Neill's very good with this move. Dropping in class, and he just seems kind of like the logical fresh face in a race like this.
Yeah, you mentioned Paul Aguirre, but when I was younger and a lot more reckless, I actually owned pieces of some horses with some friends of mine, and Paul was our trainer, and Paul does a fantastic job. He's been around the game a long time. Doesn't get as many horses as he used to from back in the day when he used to crush the Hollywood Park meet. I'm dating myself, but yeah, I think Paul does a phenomenal job. And yeah, I like all 3 of your horses in that race. I think you got a good shot getting out alive in that leg, and then it's all about your key horse here in Law Abiding. Now, let me ask you this. If, let's say you hit the first leg of the double, obviously you know what you're going to get. You can see what the payouts are. You have your 10. Will you press a little bit and bet more, bet win money on the 10, or maybe cover the horse if the horse runs 2nd in exactas? What would you do if you were in that situation? I'm not press, hedge, what's your thought process there?
Yeah, so if I get the 2, 4, 8 home in race 5, I think that double will kind of serve as my win bet.
Right.
And then I will use race 6 to play a little bit vertically. I'll use the other Baltus, like you said, maybe underneath or on top in exactas, just because if he does run 2nd, the double won't cash, but then I'll have something that instance. I might play him in 2nd more than I would in 1st.
Just right, because you're already getting paid if he wins.
Exactly, yeah. So I would use the other Baltus, and then I'd probably use Lowell Richard's Bellow. It's not anything creative, but I think those are probably the 3 logicals that you need.
All right, yeah, I'm kind of with you. There's no need to press on the win end, unless you're just. I mean, if you're getting if the horse is 4-1, and you think the horse should be 2-1, and you're getting 10-1, then maybe you want to press on the win bet. But I think it's more important to maybe play some exactas so you do take some money out of the race if your horse does end up getting beat and finishing 2nd. That's a really good play. I like that. That's a sneaky horse. I think Hurricane Cloud is going to get hammered. I think that horse is probably going to go off at like 9-5. So you might get every bit of 4-1 on Law Abiding. I think that's a phenomenal price. Let's move on to race 7, the $125,000 Shared Belief Stakes. Shared Belief. He was such a great horse. It's a 1-mile main track affair for 3-year-olds. Baffert has 3 in here, including the heavy morning line favorite, number 3, Muth at 3-5. That confuses me a little bit. He has his reasons, I'm sure. Muth absolutely looks like a standout on paper just based on his form from earlier in the year. He's had some setbacks. He was on the Triple Crown Trail, had to come off, hasn't raced since March, but the last time he raced, he won the Arkansas Derby, and that's always a pretty good race year in and year out. this is a tricky race for me to play. I was actually very curious to see what you came up with, and I actually really like it. You have an exotics play here with a bomb. Why don't you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so in the shared belief, I think it's probably Moose race to lose. The campaign has been a little bit strange, but if he runs back to anything he has before, he's a very likely winner. I'm going to try to get Indispensable underneath him. It took him a while to break his maiden, but he just seems to be getting better, and I think the light bulb's kind of turning on with him. He was an $825,000 purchase way back when, and he's still only 3. In that last race at Del Mar, where he finally did get his picture taken, he closed from a little bit out of it, which we haven't really seen here.
Yeah, and wide and outside, which
exactly
you couldn't do that at all.
Yeah, we definitely have not seen that. It's been very rare, especially with the continually speed favoring main track. With Baffert having 3, it's probably not super likely that they all duel up front and heat things up, but I still think he's an honest horse, and you're going to get a decent price just because you've got 3 Bafferts and a couple other horses that have kind of got their name out there and ones to respect.
Yeah, and the race that Indispensable won, Baffert had a horse in there called Canada Gate, who ran 3rd to Indispensable. Canada Gate came back, I think it was last week, and won rather impressively. So that could potentially be a live race. But more to the point, what you said is extremely valuable. You have to pay attention to what's going on. I do a Frankly Speaking column for In the Money Media every day, and I watch the races every day. I look at the charts every day, and I have a little track bias section. How is the track playing that day? And you're 100% correct. Indispensable, that race is so much better than it looks on paper. Yeah. It looks like he just, kind of tracked the pace, made his move, and grinded it out. But nobody was winning like that. The track profile was so against that kind of running style that I really think that race is a lot better than it looks on paper. And to your point, they had big expectations for this horse, 825,000. And, it's not like the horse was running poorly in those maiden specials, just couldn't get the job done, not the right setup or some trouble, etc. But like you said, the light bulb play, horse wins. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I get it now. And then next time they just keep improving. I just think that's a really good way to extract some value out of the race where, Muth is going to be every bit of 3 to 5 and is the most likely winner. But how do we make money with favorites? That's an exercise that we should all be thinking about. Yeah. And here's a possible way. Now, let me ask you this. What happens if Indispensable wins? Are you gonna have some win money on the horse?
Yeah,
as well?
I'm gonna definitely dabble some win money. I guess it just depends on the price for me. I'll take anything between 12 and 15 to 1. I'll probably just play him to win in place, maybe just a little bit, because if he does win, I'm gonna make sure I have something. I'm not gonna. Yeah. I'm gonna do my homework right, and I'm gonna bet right. I'm not gonna make that mistake.
Right. Yeah, so that brings up another point, actually. From a value perspective, will you lay a number on a horse or just have one in your head? Anything over this price, I'm definitely betting. Anything under this price, I'm okay with my top horse winning the race, or maybe you start a double or something like that. As a win better, do you kind of hang a number on a horse and you use that as to whether or not you're going to back the horse?
I don't normally set like a discrete number. But for example, in the Pacific Classic, I knew Dr. Venkman was going to be way lower than I thought he should be, or thought I should have been. So I just decided to play against him when I played that pick 3, and I actually played against him in the pick 5 just because I didn't think he could get the distance. So when I see favorites that I think should be a little bit too low, or are a little too low, my eyes kind of light up a little bit, just because when I handicap, I'm more of a person that likes to look for middling prices and decent prices as well. I'm not one that typically gravitates towards favorites. So when I do gravitate towards a favorite, it's probably very likely that they'll get the job done.
Okay, well that's important. I know Howard Kravitz is also very good at that. If he's typically looking for value, but if he says he's on the favorite, there's pretty good chance that favorite's going to fire big and win the race. So that's really important. And then you have to figure out how to extract money from the race when the favorite does win. And here we're talking about this. Muth is probably going to win, but if your indispensable gets up and finishes second in the exacta, you're looking at a good payout there. Let's move on to race 10, $80,000 optional claimer. Non-winners of one for 3-year-olds only, going 8.5 furlongs on the turf. I wrote up this race for the Del Mar website, my race of the day. Go to dmtc.com, click on the handicapping page. You can find all my work there. Do a horse-by-horse analysis. Again, I've been a little cold, but I was very happy to see that Noah and I came up with the same horse. The morning line favorite is number 11, Mystic Spirit at 3-1, parked all the way on the outside. Not a good place to be on the turf course. He's also a Calbred facing open company today. So I was inherently against the horse, and I came up with a couple of horses I liked, including the one that you want to talk about today. So walk us through race 10.
Yeah, so if you're a subscriber to the weekly power picks, this is actually my play of the day here today. I don't think there's any way that we get 8-1 on Tejon Pass, but I'm assuming probably 4 or 5-1. I would take anything near that. Peter Miller had him running in some pretty high quality races on the dirt over in Arkansas, but he's finally brought him back to the West Coast, and he's finally brought him back on the turf, which is definitely what he's bred for. If you look at his breeding, he's bred top and bottom, especially on the dam side to go long on the turf. The dam was a multiple graded stakes winner going long on the grass, and Tejon Pass is a half to Curlin's Fox, who is very good herself for Carla Gaines. Ran her best figure on the same turf course. I think she ran either a 99 or 100 during her campaign. And then last time he only ran 2 weeks ago. He ran in a 5 furlong race, and he ran well and finished well, just because of how I see things and how I know Peter Miller campaigns his horses. I thought that was a complete prep to get him ready for a 2-turn race. Again, this is a horse that's going to be on the inside and save ground, hoping for that reasonable price. And again, you can tell that I'm a big fan of Rispoli. If he has a good day today, then I will have a good day today.
I'm noticing a little pattern here. Hey, that's a good guy to be on for sure. That reminds me of a funny story yesterday. Corey Nakatani got into the elevator, and I was with my buddies, and we loved Corey. Corey was the best turf rider that I've ever seen at Del Mar, and we were giving him kudos. And my buddy Frank goes, "Man, I backed you so many times. I just want to say thank you much. I backed you so many times." And he goes, "Well, yeah, of course you did. Like it was like, I know I was the best." So it was just a really cool experience. Yeah. But anyway, to your point, I like this horse a lot too for similar reasons. Absolutely, that last race was a public workout. I think the horse got a lot out of that off the layoff. I'm not a huge speed figure guy, but I think it's very valuable when you see a horse who's running certain numbers on dirt and then tries turf for the first time and runs his fastest figure. Mm-hmm. To your point, this horse is meant to be on the turf. We know Oaklawn Park does not have a turf course, so he couldn't race on the turf there. Nope. So he's racing on the turf here. And then the other thing, and Peter Miller does this a lot, very successfully, I really like when a smart trainer will take a 3-year-old off a layoff, run the horse against older horses, get that experience against older horses and better animals, and then drop the horse back into an age-restricted race. This is for 3-year-olds only. Mm-hmm. Peter Miller does this all the time, and it's a very, very sneaky angle. I'm with you. I really like Tejon Pass. I don't think we'll get 8-1, but maybe 9-2. And I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're gonna. I don't have it written down here, but I'm assuming you're going to do a win bet if you're not alive in the double. But tell us about the double that you're going to play, and then we'll wrap it up and let you go and start having some fun.
Yeah, well, first off, it's no secret who I'm going to use in the online contest at dmtc.com.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but I'm going to try to play a double into him. I honestly have a pretty strong opinion about race 9, and I really think only 2 horses could win. I think the one Bart Sipsum for Richie Baltus, who is dropping in class and on the cutback, and then the 2 Jurama for Yaktina Kimura, who was favored last time off a long layoff and got a little bit of a trouble, but should be freshened up second time. And then again, try to key him into Tejon Pass.
I don't really love anybody else to key in exactas with him, and I think I'll get a good enough price to just play him to win. So I think I'll probably just play the race in that regard.
Yeah, I think that is a great double to play. I think the previous race is a 2-horse race, and I think you're on the right 2 horses. I will throw a couple of other horses out in the last race in case people do want to play exactas. I gave number 5, Uncle Happy, a look, and number 6, Cathal, a little bit of a look. But Tejon Pass is my absolute top pick, so I'm with you. Noah, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to share with us your insights. I'm rooting for you. You know, I think you're doing tremendous work, and it just really, it gives me a lot of hope for the future of the sport. Like I said, when I talk to guys like you or Ryan Anderson, or, you know, Jackson Muniz, Shane O'Neill, all you young guys who are coming up and up through the ranks, and you're doing the work. And I love that a lot of you guys you're old school. You're using the paper form, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Everything comes in circles. You know, I probably would still be using the paper form to this day, but I can't read it anymore. The print is too small, so I have to blow it up on my tablet so I can actually handicap the races. But anyway, thank you so much, everyone out there. Please do yourself a favor. Check out Noah's Power Picks, hhhracingpodcast.com. Find it there. Also, check out the YouTube channel for that podcast, as well as Betting and Boozing. That is a really fun show. I think you guys have that's what racing's about, right? You got a group of friends coming on, talking about the horses, having a good time, and hopefully making a little bit of money. So everyone out there, please check it out. I'll be back again next week for the very last day of the meet. I can't believe it went by so quickly, but I'm looking forward to speaking with former NHC champion and founder of Optics EQ, John Doyle. Known John for a long time, and he is one of the sharpest out there. But until then, as I always like to say, good luck to us, and let's make some money. Thanks, Noah. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Frank.